If you're involved in software development, you just know how difficult it is to estimate project timelines accurately. Whether you're a developer, a software engineer, a project manager, or even a stakeholder, you may have likely encountered the frustration of running projects behind schedule and going over budgets. Don't worry, you're not alone. In fact, inaccurate project estimates is one of the most common pains in software development, and that's why we're here today to share you some tips that you can be able to use to avoid guesstimation and estimate project timelines effectively, avoiding frustrating setbacks. So, if you're tired of missing deadlines and cost overruns, stick around while we dive into game-changing strategies. One of the ways that's going to impact your credibility as a developer is your ability to correctly estimate how long it takes to get a project done. Majority of developers are still trying to master their coding skills while working on projects, and have not been blessed with the opportunity to have formal training in project management, while some have little or no opportunities to work with project managers while on a project. There needs to be a starting point, be it formal or informal, that will actually be intended to be logical enough, progressive enough, and effective enough to give project estimates in a project. On time being relative and trying to make it as objective as possible to avoid guesstimations, it's important to follow these two guides. One is by figuring out what you can control, and the other by figuring out what you cannot control in a project. Project estimations are so hard to predict, and sometimes we usually go wrong, ending up being guesstimations. That's why it's important for you to actually figure out the things you cannot control and tackle them as much as possible, providing remedies to them. There are some common activities you might encounter while in the quest of finding out the things you cannot control. And one of them is actually figuring out the features you've never worked on before. This is actually common in the life of a developer because it leaves them wondering on how they can be able to solve that problem. And one of the ways you can be able to tackle that is by actually referencing your past history and the things you've worked on previously, figuring out how similar they are compared to what you're working on now, and seeing how you can be able to create an intersection in solving those problems in bits. Another way is by researching and practicing the said feature. You might not necessarily be working on the entire project while trying to solve the feature, but just trying to be specific about solving that particular activity in the project. For example, if you've been given an opportunity to build a social media platform that has a chat functionality and you've never done a chat functionality before, it's best to figure out how you can be able to make research on building this chat functionality and practice building that chat functionality till you're able to get it right. That gives you an opportunity to create a markup of how long it takes for you to build a chat functionality and leverage on translating that into something you can be able to control over time. Another way of figuring out things you cannot control is by looking at the third-party systems that are required to be integrated on the current platform you are building. And that will stem from the aspect of agreement, compliance, implementation, and also documentation. This is kind of important because it gives you an opportunity to figure out the time estimate that will be required to actually accomplish these set of third-party systems. And also, it's important to note that your management or clients would also be involved in this activity, especially in the part of agreement where they need to sign with the third-party systems and the compliance where they actually get to have the opportunity to know if the systems or third-party systems are best fit for them. Another way, especially if you're in a team, of understanding the things you cannot control is to understand the tasks that are actually assigned to most of the people in your team and the necessary blockers you might actually encounter over time while working on the project. The blockers might actually stem from the idea of incompetence and maybe delay in tasks, and that would actually stem from blocking you from getting your activities done. So it's important you get to figure out and understand how your team members operate and how you can be able to achieve operation. Like for example, as a backend engineer, I always feed APIs to front-end developers, and most of the times the front-end developers present these activities to the management or client. Most of the times, once I'm done with the APIs and I'm actually giving it to the front-end developer, sometimes they actually take time to actually implement this project, and it's important to actually figure out the level of competence of this developer so that you can be able to know what seems to be the blocker, or if the project is actually kind of very large for the front-end developer to do. That will stem from making decisions with the client or management about the competence of the developer and if you need to add more people to the team or you need to actually change the developer. I've had the opportunity to work on a project that was just meant to last for 3 months, and it ended up lasting for about 8 months, which was actually demotivating to me at a certain point, and also the money was of no value at that moment. So it's important to actually figure out in agreement how you can be able to make sure that this works to your advantage. Still on the part of the things you cannot control, there might be a part where the client or management might no longer be interested in the project, which would actually lead it to being an abandoned project. It's important to actually figure out the kind of agreement that you can be to leverage on so that it doesn't get to work to your disadvantage, especially for freelancers. Also, there could be a case of discrepancies in the scope of work, and it's important to figure out how best you can be able to re-evaluate the scope of work and understand how much it actually affects the project, and discuss this with the client or management to leverage on actually re-estimating the timelines to best fit to your own part. Trying to manage the project and also manage the people who are working in the project is also a very difficult task, because at the same time you're actually developing and at the same time you're managing. So it's important you figure out how best you can be able to leverage on understanding the competence of the people you're going to be working with in the project, so that you don't get to shoot yourself in the leg while actually delivering to your client or management. I've had a personal experience where I was paid a huge sum of money running into thousands of dollars, but I was not able to deliver the project. All I was just told was, hey, just keep the initial payment we give to you. We're no longer interested in working with you. That would actually kill your reputation to an extent, and your ability to actually estimate timelines based on competency and incompetency is actually relevant for you when it comes to the aspect of working on the project, developing, and also trying to manage people who are going to be doing the job with you. On the parts of the project that are under your control, it's important to note that you still need to raise up cases that may occur in the said accomplishment of tasks. Sometimes it might be minimal, but it's important to figure out how best you can be able to chunk these features and break them into smaller bits as much as possible. This will give you an opportunity to estimate specific timelines for these chunks, and also create a markup for the assumptions that might arise from previous issues you've encountered before or issues you're going to be encountering in future. It's important to actually track down these assumptions and eliminate them as much as possible. Based on my experience, from the things I can be able to control, I usually multiply the set time given by 1.5x in order to accommodate any assumptions in the project. So for example, if I have the opportunity of delivering a set feature in 3 days, and I'm sure that I can be able to deliver it, I actually add an extra 1.5 days, which makes it about 4.5 days to accomplish that set task. For the things I cannot be able to control, I usually multiply by 3x of the said accomplishment of time, which means that if a task is actually meant to take about 2 days, I multiply it by 3 or 4, depending on how I can be able to predict or iterate making research on that feature, and deliver that feature in 6 to 8 days. Based on my experience, I use more of an agile methodology to achieve my project management of chunking my activities into smaller bits. And the tools I use are Excel sheets, monday.com, or sometimes trello.com. I'll be sharing my last project activity on backend development estimates in the description below, of how I was able to document about 1,428 tasks in the project based on what I could control and what I could not control, and how I identified and eliminated the assumptions in the project. Please do well to fill the form and download the Excel sheet and have a little experience of how I've been able to curate my own project estimates. This can create a baseline for you on how you can be able to create yours, and also make activities for you simplified. Please note that this is not the formal way of getting it done, but this has actually given me an opportunity to be productive in most of the activities I've been doing, and also take up multiple projects as much as I can. Why you need project estimate is to actually create a value proposition for yourself and project this value while your reputation is being delivered. Also, it creates another mode of creating a vertical in project management for yourself, where you can be consulted on how long it takes, especially on project specifications. The idea of creating a time estimate is not to look for ways of charging your clients or figuring out how best to charge your clients per hour, although it creates an opportunity where you can be able to do that, but that's not really the core reasons. I believe I've been able to give you some idea of how you can be able to raise estimates, and also with the help of the Excel sheet in the description, give you a guideline on how I actually have my experience in projecting my time estimates. Kindly do well to like the video. Please subscribe to my channel and click the notification bells for more videos like this. I remain Schneider. Thank you.